9.
The Radio Wammo Breakfast.
Well, my next guest in the Kiwi studio is talking about something called green roofs or living roofs. In fact, is there a difference? We're going to find out with Dr. Brad Bass, who is the adjunct professor for the Centre of Environment at the University of Toronto and the recent chair of the North American Green Roof Research Committee. Hello to you, Brad.
Good morning, Glenn.
Cheers for joining us. And now you're in the country, of course, to talk about this concept of green roofs, obviously something that you're very, very passionate about.
Yes, I've been working with green roofs for about 15 or 16 years now. So it's technology that certainly just attracted me right away when I heard about the possibility.
Now, I think a lot of people might be familiar with the term, but can you define what a green roof is?
Yeah, a green roof simply is a roof that can grow vegetation.
Okay.
But it's not, you don't just throw the dirt on the roof and grow it, although in some cases people have done that. There is a technology underlying it, both to protect the roof, but also to make sure the vegetation does survive.
Now, why would anyone want to be doing this on their roof?
Oh, well, there's several reasons. I mean, many people just do it because it looks nice. Other people do it because they are concerned about the environment. So the green roof, with some buildings, will reduce energy consumption. It will improve air quality. You can also use them to create habitat for rare flowers, spiders, birds, or common spiders, birds, etc. And you can also use it to keep water on the roof instead of having it go down the drain. So it really makes use of the rainwater and prevents it from becoming an environmental problem during a heavy rainstorm.
Now, this is obviously more important in cities than rural communities.
Well, believe it or not, there are some very interesting green roofs in rural communities. Farmers have found they're a very good technology for keeping chicken houses cool, or turkey houses cool, or keeping barns cool. So they certainly can be used in rural areas. The rural areas have a real opportunity for creating the plants, for nursing the plants, growing the plants that are then used on the green roofs in the urban areas. So there can be a real connection between urban and rural with this technology.
Are there any high-profile examples that you can think of in the world of green roofs?
Well, there are certainly a number of what I would call high-profile examples. The California Science Academy, which in itself is a very interesting roof because it's wavy, it's curved, it's not flat, and it has a green roof, which is fairly difficult to install. The City Hall in my own city, Toronto, has a new green roof. It's one of the larger ones, and it's very diverse, very colorful. There's a green roof in Chicago. Most people aren't even aware it's a roof. It's an urban park, but it is a roof. It's over a parking garage. It's the largest in the world. It's a very large roof. So those are a few of the high-profile ones. There's a beautiful bird and butterfly roof in Japan that I know about. That certainly is worth seeing. Yeah.
A lot of people doing this, a lot of people starting to get into it?
It's still, it depends where you are. In Germany, Sweden, basically Europe, Northern Europe, yes, there's a lot of green roofs. Some cities have really adopted it. Toronto has a green roof bylaw that applies to certain buildings. Portland, Chicago has a very large target for roof coverage, but it's still a very nascent or emerging industry in many parts of the world.
And you've outlined some of the main benefits, and there are quite a few, but are councils or local authorities concentrating on one particular benefit when they're promoting it?
In some cities, yes. Chicago, they're concentrating on the heat, keeping the city cooler. Portland, Oregon, they're concentrating on water. Some of the cities in Germany are concentrating on biodiversity. Whereas the city of Toronto is unique because it says all of those are important, but we want you to specifically put up a green roof. Whereas other cities have said we want you to reduce the runoff of stormwater from your property. Here are 5 ways of doing it. Green roof is one of them. The city of Toronto has come out and said, no, we want the green roofs. So most councils focus on a particular benefit, and green roofs will help achieve that. But some cities do focus just on the green roofs.
It sounds like, though, that there would be many engineering difficulties in retrofitting older buildings with green roofs.
Retrofitting older buildings used to be it can still be a problem because sometimes the roof of an older building won't hold the extra weight. There are some now extremely lightweight products that you can purchase. And green roofs are getting thinner. And there's still some debate over whether that's a good thing. But you can now purchase green roofs that use centimeters of growing medium. They don't use soil, they use a lightweight growing medium. And whereas the minimum depth used to be 3 inches, I still use those units sometimes, you can actually now purchase some green roof products that are in fact 2 or 3 centimeters of depth, or 2 centimeters. So basically in less than 2 inches.
And so we're not talking about big bushy plants here. We're talking about these low, creeping, growing.
Yeah. On those roofs, you're often talking about succulent plants, and they're very low. Yes, if you can put on more growing medium or even soil, you can start to grow some larger plants. In fact, 6 inches is usually enough to grow some larger plants.
So it doesn't need constant attention or upkeep from a groundskeeper on the roof?
When you first establish the roof, it does need attention. It depends what you want to grow. If you just want an ecosystem on the roof, eventually it will look after itself.
Yeah.
But when you establish it, because you're putting the plants in a very harsh climate. Roof climates are very harsh, and you're not giving them a lot to work with. You do have to make sure that they're getting sufficient moisture, and you're also keeping weeds off of the roof.
Weeds would be a big problem, wouldn't they?
They could be, yes. Now, interestingly enough, one of the things I'll talk about this afternoon is the thin green roofs, the ones with only a few inches of growing medium or a few centimeters, keep the weeds off themselves for the most part because there's not enough nutrients. It's too harsh for many of the weeds.
Yeah. Have there been experience in places like Chicago of the wildlife returning to the city?
Chicago, I don't know examples from Chicago, but there are roofs where, and that's in fact what they've done. There's one in New York that I know about where they didn't plan it that way, and they created it as a thin roof, very thin roof. They grow in these succulent plants called sedums, very hardy on the roof. They added one wildflower species, and the roof attracted all sorts of insects and birds. There's some roofs in London and the Canary Wharf area which have become home to an endangered bird.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
that's a success there.
And there's in Switzerland they've actually found some spiders they thought were extinct in the country on green roofs.
Oh, great. Well, but what about actual measurable benefits, as I say, to cooling down cities or retaining water?
Well, that's one of the things that I've been working on. Some of my colleagues in New Zealand have been working on. So we've actually been able to look at some of the energy benefits, and what we found is that, especially on older buildings that aren't built to the same standards as the newer buildings, you can get certainly a reduction in the amount of air conditioning used for the floor below the green roof. In one building in Madrid, we saw that we could reduce air conditioning by about 20% on the floor that was covered by the roof. So there are definitely some measurable benefits. On the water side, they've done a lot more work. Green roofs are very good at holding on to stormwater.
Yeah.
When it rains, the water will stay on the roof, at least for a short period of time, which really helps prevent, in some cities, that water from flushing out the sewers, which you don't want.
Yeah. Is this part of the greater solutions, or one of the many solutions to climate change?
Yes, in fact, green roofs can certainly be part of that. One, because they can, in some buildings, reduce energy consumption. They only absorb a very small amount of carbon, but I think what they do, which is very important, is one of the drivers of climate change is, in fact, land use change. And we've removed so much vegetation to build our cities. Green roofs gives us a way of putting that vegetation back, and then that moisture that used to be there to return to the atmosphere is now there again. And overall, that will help cool the cities. Covering even 50% of the rooftops in a city with green roofs, you could start to see temperature reductions of up to 2 degrees.
Wow.
At least at that roof level. And for where I live, 2 degrees would mean at least an 8% reduction in electricity use.
Well, it's significant, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you are talking about this afternoon in Auckland City at an event in the central CBD. We're going to be at the Bluestone Room at 9 to 11 Durham Lane in Auckland Central from 2 till 4:30 p.m. Will it just be you, or there'll be a selection of speakers?
There'll be a few other speakers. I'm going to speak on energy and biodiversity, and other people will speak on stormwater and some other aspects of green roofs. And
Dr. Brad Bass is a guest of Living Roofs, Unitech, and Andrew Stewart Limited as well. Enjoy the rest of your stay here in New Zealand.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much for dropping by. Cheers.